As we shift gears, we want to welcome in Stephen Kent, Media Director for Consumer Choice Center, to help us set up the state of the streaming stocks. So we heard from Disney earlier this week. Now, a lot of Disney's excitement, I think, was more of its parks and things. But what do these legacy companies still have that is bringing value to shareholders?
Well, they always have popular and reliable IP. That's something that Disney always has to go back to the well on. But, to your last segment's topic, this whole subject of film tariffs coming from the Trump administration, the mere threat of it is incredibly intimidating for anybody backing any of these stocks, and it's got to make companies like Disney, like Netflix, shake a little bit in their boots. There's been a lot of efforts to feed the streaming machine by taking film shoots abroad. Right. 75% of Netflix catalog is technically foreign produced, and one of their big pieces of entertainment offerings before they started pivoting towards live entertainment was South Korean film and television. It's all over that particular streaming platform because Americans happen to love it. And so a lot of them are going to be looking at their cost of production, how they relate to union policies, and going, well, we might not be able to feed the beast of streaming anymore if John Voight actually gets his way in pushing Donald Trump towards pursuing these tariffs, which, again, we don't really even know how they would be implemented because film and TV is still in the product of a service and less of a product that is a consumer good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the initial response kind of reflected maybe how it might try to work, which was you saw Netflix see a little bit more of an impact than maybe a Disney, where maybe Netflix is perceived, and correct me if I'm wrong, to be buying the finished product from maybe a South Korean producer, where Disney is largely producing content. They just might be doing it in other jurisdictions. Am I wrong with that read through? Or is Netflix truly producing these things, just maybe producing them with some of these other, international partners?
No, I think you're right, and it kind of goes back to John Voight's set of proposals that he offered to the president, which, the FCC might actually take up this idea that he's proposed of returning to FinCEN rules, which would basically use the FCC to stop streaming companies or TV networks from owning the content on their platforms. That's the model of streaming today. That's where we basically saw Netflix in an initial period of downturn when all of their competitors started taking their IP and moving it over to their platforms, like your Paramount, like your Disney. And this proposal from John Voight would take us back 40 years in terms of how we handle FinCEN policies, and it would make a dramatic difference for how the streaming platforms have shaped up their business in the past decade.
Yeah, what would that impact be? Like, let's talk Netflix. Obviously, Disney has its own IP and catalogs, and it monetizes them well beyond just its streaming platforms. But Netflix, I imagine that would weigh on margins tremendously. I mean, if they had to license every single thing on their platform as opposed to, produce it themselves, is that even viable?
I don't see how it is. I mean, this would absolutely crush this business and make it incredibly hard for it to grow and continue meeting consumer needs. I represent the Consumer Choice Center. We tend to favor an abundance agenda, and streaming and entertainment is absolutely in that category of something that we expect as consumers, an abundance of options and content. And studios have absolutely been able to do that by taking their film shoots to the UK, to Ireland, to Hungary. And now you've got the advocacy for state tax credits expanding to a MAGA tax credit for films, $7.8 billion of a federal tax credit that Gavin Newsom would like to see the federal government tack on top of his state tax credit in California to try and make it even cheaper. But all of these things are really going to accomplish nothing at the end of the day if the business of Hollywood is completely restricted by the business of unions.
Stephen Kent, Media Director, Consumer Choice Center.